I'm Julia Simpson, President and CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council.
Julia, thank you so much for joining Breaking Travel News here at Arabian Travel Market. I believe this is your first visit. Give us some of your first impressions.
Well, it is. It's the first time I've been to the Arabian Travel Market here in Dubai, and as you can see, it is absolutely packed, which I think is a good reflection of what we're seeing in terms of travel and tourism to the whole area of the Gulf, which is booming.
And bring some numbers and some context to that sort of boom.
Yeah, so the Middle East is the fastest growing travel and tourism sector in the world. Asia Pacific is as well, but that's off quite a lower base more generally. But so it's one of the fastest areas. Why? First of all, you've got a great commitment by governments that understand the value of travel and tourism. So really work hand in glove with the people that I represent, which is the private sector in travel and tourism, all the businesses. So, I was talking to someone, it was an idea of the sheikhs here in 1959 to open an airport and to boost tourism. And all the famous management consultants, they got them in and they said, forget it, you're never going to build any tourism here. It's a desert, there's nothing you can do about it. And I think being told they couldn't do something made them absolutely determined. And I mean, it is stunning. So what have we seen? In the Middle East at the minute, we've just seen compared to last year, income from travel and tourism has actually gone up by 50%. And the number of tourism, the number of tourist contribution to GDP, it's the number that we use, it's gone up by 25%. I mean, these are double-digit growth numbers, which are defying gravity, really. So it's very strong here in this market, yeah.
And, I think that really kind of demonstrates the power of having a vision.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a vision, and I also think it demonstrates, be careful, don't take something for granted. So, I always say in the UK, it represents about 9% of GDP in the UK, but the government doesn't really focus on it well, and in fact, sometimes does things that hinders travel and tourism. Why would you want to do that when this is creating so many jobs? If you look globally now, travel and tourism this year is going to be worth over $11 trillion. It's kind of a number you can't get your head around. It's going to be employing almost 350 million people. That is larger than the whole population of the USA. So the whole population, bigger than the USA, are working in travel and tourism globally. And while our sector gives jobs to real experts, marketing experts, engineers, AI experts, it is also a career that you can start, if you like, at the bottom. We call it direct entry jobs, which means that our sector has more women and more young people in it compared to other sectors.
And what is WTTC really advocating from government to do more of?
Well, first of all, it's all about sustainability because, 80% of all our holidays touch shorelines. So, we want to understand our impact on the environment. In fact, we do understand our impact, but to make sure that we can deliver on our sustainability goals, we do need to work very closely with governments. So, I'll give you an example. One of the biggest causes of greenhouse gas emissions globally in travel and tourism actually is ground vehicles, ground transport. That's more than aviation, international aviation. And then in international aviation, we need governments to back schemes for the production of sustainable aviation fuel. The airlines can't make their own fuel. So we need to see incentivization and investment by governments into sustainable aviation fuel. That's another sort of an example that we're looking at. And we work closely with the COPs. There are two parallel COPs. One is around climate change and global heating of the planet. And obviously we just saw all the floods in Dubai, so we're seeing these things happen. And the other area is around nature. And travel and tourism can really be guardians of nature. We held a big summit recently in Rwanda, and we saw there the mountain gorilla that was on the brink of extinction, actually brought back from extinction by tourism, because the tourists pay $1,500 to see these magnificent animals, and some of that money goes to the farmers that had previously been cutting down the forest. So they see the gorillas as their friends, as a source of income, if you like, and they're proud of them. So, tourism can really work for the best.
And of course, you've got a whole raft of initiatives throughout sort of WTTC around that, your Sustainability Basics program, for example?
Yeah, Sustainability Basics is brilliant because a group came to us, Radisson, part of the Xinjiang group, a big hotel group, as you know, and they were saying, do you know, Julia, probably 80% of all hotels in the world aren't the big magnificent chains that we love, the Hiltons, the IHGs, the Marriotts. Actually, a lot of them are very small and medium hotels and small chains. Now, while some of them might be ahead of the curve on what they're doing on sustainability, it's fair to say that some of them don't have the wherewithal or the resources to do that first step on how do we make our hotel sustainable. So we created with Green Keys and SGS, who are obviously scientific leaders in this field, a verification program. It's very simple. You do it online. You have to prove checks and balances, and it means you're looking at things like you not using plastics, looking at how your washing regime, food waste, these important things, where you get your energy from. Could you use renewable energy? How are you paying your staff? How do you work with your local community? So it's a whole aspect of ESG, but it's 12 steps, so it's not daunting. And we say to people, if they can do that for 2 to 3 years, then they can progress into some of the more sophisticated schemes, yeah.
Now, you're a leader who really never stops, perhaps even never sleeps, I don't know. What next and where next?
Well, next I'm hoping to go to Rome. I'm having a big meeting in Rome with the government there. I'm also going to IATA. I think IATA, which brings together all the airline bosses, as you know, will be really interested to find out what the latest technology is, and also trying to get governments to see airlines as a solution and an ally. This is what we need. I always say in Europe, for example, we've been trying to introduce something called single European skies.
Right.
Sounds rather dull. What it means is when you fly across Europe, currently you zigzag, and you get handed from one air traffic control in one country to another, and you do a big zigzag. If we could allow planes in Europe to fly more or less in straight lines, you'll always have some military areas, we know that, but more or less in straight lines, we can save 20% of greenhouse gas emissions. So that means the European Union has in its hands an ability to help aviation. So don't just have a go, but really roll up your sleeves and help aviation do what it needs to do.
And of course, you've got your big summit coming up towards the end of the year.
Yes, our next summit, which I call is it's where United Nations meets the Oscars. It's absolutely fantastic. It's the biggest event of the year. We bring together all the global leaders from travel and tourism, and we also bring together a lot of politicians as well and leaders. And we talk about the issues of the day, and we're holding it in Perth, Western Australia. So if you're in London like me, I can get a 17-hour direct Qantas flight. Fabulous. I read a whole book, watched 2 films, ate a meal and had a sleep. I mean, heaven, wonderful. Nobody could get me. I think I pretended my Wi-Fi wasn't working, but actually it was, So it's going to be in Perth. And I think it's the first time that we will have been in Australasia holding one of our major summits. So, and I think, it's really important because the whole issue around First Nation people, the Aboriginals who will be welcoming us to our land, it's such an interesting area. There are sacred mountains, there's coral reefs that are completely untouched, and there's so much to see that, as well as Margaret River that does, I can attest to this, the best Chardonnay in the whole of Australia.
On that note, Julia, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye-bye.